Hi, my name is Kimberly Davis, and I'm here to talk with you about investigating construction accidents. Investigating construction accidents certainly depends upon the level of the case. As you might imagine, a construction accident can involve everything from, in the case of one plaintiff, a sprained ankle, to the unfortunate case of death. Therefore, based upon the complexity of the fact scenario, as well as the damages that are anticipated, the investigation would need to be geared accordingly. You will want to determine the who, what, where, and when. So initially, upon learning that your client was involved in a construction accident, you are well served to get to the scene right away and to talk with the key parties for your client. When you arrive for the first time on the scene of a construction accident, you will likely meet with supervisors, key representatives of your client, as well as an expert in the field that is involved in the accident. You will most likely have conversations with perhaps witnesses, supervisors, foremen, and anyone that you can begin to identify who may have some information as to how the accident occurred. In addition to speaking with people, you will want to observe the scene, cordon off the scene, photograph the scene, and identify the tools or instrumentalities involved, if that applies, of course. If the accident involved some tool, or more likely some machinery or large piece of equipment, it's important to identify and preserve that device. It's important to determine the exact make and model, as well as who was responsible for maintaining that piece of machinery and who owned it. You would then discuss with your expert how the product or machinery should have operated, and then your theory for why it failed. Working alongside an expert during a construction accident investigation is very important. That expert can guide you in the appropriate regulations governing the work that was being performed at the time of the accident. So, for example, an expert who concentrates in OSHA regulations. What was the applicable standard? What was the rule for the work being performed at the time? And was that indeed followed? What equipment was being used? Was the proper equipment being used? On a construction accident site, there are folks responsible for safety. Their employer is responsible for safety. There may be allegations in a case that entities other than the employer had some control over safety at the accident site. And that's going to bear into your entire investigation. To identify persons who may have played a role in the safe operation of work on the job site, you should look to the contracts. You should look for specific regulations of each company involved on that job site who's affiliated with the accident. What do I mean by that? The individual's employer. Did that employer have safety regulations, company policies about safety? Also look to the contracts. Let's say this is a large-scale construction site. There will be a contract between the owners or an owner's agent and a general contractor. That contract may spell out obligations for safety. The general contractor very likely had contracts with each of the subcontractors. Those contracts very likely discuss the subcontractors' obligations with regard to safety and overseeing its employees on the job site. Outside entities may perform an investigation of a construction accident. You'll want to determine if that was done, and if so, obtain those documents. So who are we talking about? Possibly OSHA may have investigated the accident. You will want to obtain their file materials, their conclusion, whether or not any citation was issued. Also, if the individual was a member of a union, the union would likely have records pertaining to the accident. So those are two sources of additional information for you when investigating a construction accident. Another source of information for you when investigating a construction accident would be the injured party's medical records. Likely you won't be able to obtain those until after suit is brought, but that can be a very important source for facts regarding underlying liability and any medical issues that may have been impacting the plaintiff, medications, things like that. As we've discussed, visiting the scene, identifying and interviewing witnesses, consulting with an expert, obtaining and reviewing contracts, obtaining and reviewing any third-party investigation of the accident, and examining the injured party's medical records all serve as a solid foundation for investigating a construction accident. For additional information on investigating construction accidents, as well as pleadings involved in those types of accidents and coverage issues, please take a look at the ISBA's online CLE. Thank you.